Hey, hi everyone. This is Lou Adler. We're going to be going live in about a minute. I want to make sure we're live. I've got to get a cup of coffee, so hold on 1 second if you could. Please say hi. I'm going to check to make sure we are live and we're ready to rock and roll, but give me 2 minutes, okay? 2 minutes, we'll go live. And what I'd like you to do is put your biggest hiring challenge into the chat area. It'll take me about 30 seconds to sync all these things up. Then we're going to go live. I'm going to show you what the future of hiring is really going to look like. And it's going to be different than what you ever imagined. So that's where we're going here. And I'll see you in a few minutes. Hey, hi, everyone. We got a few people here. Actually, I probably am in the wrong meeting room, but I'll go here anyway because I don't see the people. We invited about 30 people directly to the Zoom meeting. I do not see them here. So obviously I'm meeting with some different group of people. Irrespective of that, we will have a conversation here about rebooting hiring. What I'd like you to do though is put in, if you could, in the chat area, your biggest hiring challenge. You might want to say, I'm a job seeker, I'm trying to find a job. You could say, I'm a hiring manager, I'm trying to find people. You could say, I'm a recruiter who's not working. Whatever it is, I'd like you to say, my biggest hiring challenge at this moment is, just tell me a little bit about it. I hear my coffee being made in the coffee machine right behind me. I've got to get that coffee. I cannot make it for 45 minutes without it. But if you could put me one of your hiring challenges in the chat area, that would be great. I will be right back. Okay, where I am is in Southern California. I see Mohammed from Egypt, so it's got to be afternoon in Egypt. I haven't seen a single person tell me some of your hiring challenges, though. So I'm trying to find a job, Mark. Well, that's good. At least I've got one. I know there's about a 30-second delay from when I ask a question and I hear the response. The reason is that there's a 30-second delay before you even hear me say the question. So I'm looking at these in real time. So I'm kind of figuring that part out. So it is now, just to give you a sense, it is now May 20th, about 10 o'clock a.m. in Southern California. We're seeing some opening due to COVID, but we do need people to tell me what they see as a hiring challenge. So we got a lot of job seekers here. Well, this was not really designed for job seekers, but I'll tailor it to that. To make sure that we do get everybody involved here. So let me kind of go through a couple of things that I make the statement. This would only be, well, here's the part. So here's the big tip for job seekers. You know, I've written a couple of books. If you go to winwinhiring.com, I think there's 20 seats left. There's not much more than that. We have a new course that I created for job seekers, getting ready to be interviewed. It's a free course. You don't pay a dime. You don't even have to pay a dime. I pay a dime to get you in there, but you get the course for free, and it shows you exactly what you have to do to get a job, or it shows you what you have to do once you're interviewed. Uh, okay, so still got a job, but I'm gonna step up and want to get strategy advice. Well, we'll try to do whatever we can. We'll try to give everybody advice they can. The truth is, I think I'm in the wrong class here, guys. So there's a bunch of 30 or 40 or 50 people waiting for me somewhere else, but hopefully they find me. And I'm going to apologize for that, but hey, it is what it is. Nonetheless, that's a good course for job seekers. If you're a hiring manager, there's also a course on how to implement performance-based hiring. That's also free. And then if you want to conduct the interview, you got to pay for that one. But if you're hiring someone, it's worth the money to pay for it because it's going to be pretty remarkable. This is a story that I tell from many years ago. So recognize that what I'm saying today was really, in my mind, was designed for hiring managers and recruiters, but mostly for hiring managers. And you know that I'm pretty old, 74. I'm actually 74 years old. I started work. I went to my 50th college reunion 2 years ago. I started out as an engineer. I then got into finance, accounting, and manufacturing. But my first management job was 26 or so in a big automotive manufacturing company, was handling all the capital budgeting. And my boss, who was a brilliant guy, best boss I ever had, he said something when I started hiring people. This is what he said when I started hiring people. I'm going to move this camera a little bit because it's hurting my neck here a little bit. So here's what he said. I did not want to go on some interviews up at University of Michigan. He said to this, and we had a big project we had to do. And it was late, and I had a first presentation with the VP Finance the next morning. It was a real important thing. Well, my boss, Chuck, he said, get over here to University of Michigan. Hiring the best talent is the most important thing you'll ever do. Everything else can wait. Everything else can wait. Well, I went over to University of Michigan that afternoon, interviewed 8 candidates. We stayed late at night, took 6 of them out to dinner, hired 4 of them. And all of those 4, this is 50 years ago, all became CFOs, VP finances, or CEOs of companies, big companies. And it was the most important lesson I ever heard as a hiring manager. As a recruiter, I still believe this to be true. I think hiring managers have to own that concept. I will tell you, we got back about 10 o'clock at night, finished a report, which was handwritten because when it was due for the VP Finance and the president of the group the next morning. Chuck and I stayed up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, got 3 or 4 hours sleep, took a shower, went there, made the presentation the next morning. The group president said, "Why is this handwritten?" And Chuck told him we were out at the University of Michigan hiring MBAs. We found 3 good ones. And Chuck said, "I told Lou hiring was the most important thing we ever had to do." Group president looked at both of us and said, "I agree with you. This is a great report. Thank you for doing it." Hiring is the most important thing you ever can do. Everything else can wait if you're a manager. Again, this webcast I'm doing in this LinkedIn Live was designed for hiring managers, but I'll put the job seeker twist to it to make sure that you implement it. We have a course, a very unusual course for job seekers. That's true. Our job seeker course is free. We have a course for hiring managers and recruiters that they take the course together. They take a series of self-paced training courses. We go through some live coaching, and they complete a case study project to hire someone together. They then become bar raisers at their companies because they understand how to implement performance-based hiring. I'm going to give it to you as a job seeker because at some time you might be interviewing candidates, but even though you're seeing the perspective of the company hiring a job seeker, I think you'll still get great value from this content, even though it's not necessarily designed specifically for job seekers, but I'll give you a couple of twists on how to pull it off. So I want to go back. I already went back 50 years. I'm going to go fast forward to 1998. So that story I told you was in 1972. I'm going to go to 1998, where I wrote a book on hiring. And my background was not always in recruiting. I just decided, I don't want to get into that story of why I left manufacturing. I just hated my group president, became a recruiter, and decided, hey, this was pretty cool. But in 1998, we were told that new HR technology, job boards, applicant tracking systems, rudimentary screening techniques, which is now advanced artificial intelligence, we were told that we would win the war for talent. It would be easy for people to get jobs, companies to hire people. Everything was going to be great. At that time, I had this cartoon drawn. I didn't draw it, I had it drawn. And it was a leaky bucket. And I said, there's so many things wrong. Spend all this money for advertising. Candidates, it's difficult to find a job. 1 in 100 gets hired if you apply for a job. 1 in 100. 3 in 100 actually get interviewed. This is based on 300 million applications. Only 3 million got hired. 1% got hired. 1%, 3% get interviewed. So basically, you got a boring job. It's hard to find these jobs. People apply to them nilly-willy, whether they're qualified or not, and then they complain, I applied to 50 jobs or 100 jobs or 1,000 jobs, and nobody called me. It's because that system is a bad system. And then if you do get interviewed, it's poor interviewers. We got recruiters who can't explain stuff. You got bad systems. It's cumbersome. It's costly. To me, I just throw the whole thing away. So my process, which I always believe since I became a recruiter in 1978, was win-win hiring. You hire for the anniversary date, not the start date. Anniversary date says, hey, you define the work the person needs to do ahead of time, and you find people who are competent and motivated to do that work. And a year later, they say, hey, I'm glad I took this job. And the manager says, I'm glad I hired that person. And you look at that's pretty common sense idea. But I'm going to tell you the old ways is you hire for the start date. Hey, the person have the skills. Will he take the money? Does he interview? Is he hungry enough? And you'd make these judgments about, I got to fill the job on the start date. And candidates say, I got to get back in the job. When you think about the anniversary date, it's a totally different process, totally different decision-making on the manager's side and the candidate's side. I believe in win-win hiring. That's the process that I want to talk about today and how to pull it off. I'm just reading some of these and it's hard to, if I look like I'm distracted, Ernst, thank you. If you have more than a question or a statement that's more than a sentence, I start reading it and I can't do that. So I apologize. But this is the mission I have, and I've been having it for 1978. I knew that everyone was saying, no, the internet and job boards and artificial will solve the problem. I've been to 10 HR tech conferences. I get kicked out of all of them because I say it's a waste of time. We're doing the wrong stuff. So I want to say, to me, you got to reboot hiring. And I think you as a job seeker can do it. I'll show you how, one-on-one. When you get your next interview, I'll show you how to pull it off. But let me give the big picture first. You need a strategy that says we want to attract people for win-win, not weed out for day one. So that's number one. It's a system from how you define the job, how you interview candidates, how you close candidates, and how you manage candidates once they're hired. It's more high touch. I don't need 1,000 people to apply to their job and weed out 997 because that's where I spend most of my time. No, I'm going to make it harder for job seekers to get a job. And the big thing I say for job seekers is don't apply. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. I now have JJ here. Hi, JJ. Boy, fine. What happened to you? Do I have to bring you into my meeting? Let me see if I do. Have to invite you in or not. Well, I'm going to hide your camera, JJ. Hold on. I got to see if we can put you both in there. Okay. Sorry, everybody, but my producer is a famous actress and she doesn't want to show her picture. So I can't, I just have to let her in though, or else I'll take a lot of heat the afternoon. So it's much more high touch, fewer people. And I would say if you're a job seeker, you've got to convert, hey, I'm not going to apply to that black hole of a job posting. And I'll give you some ideas. We got another online class yesterday where we gave you some ideas on how to get a job. It's through the back door. We'll get into that, but you cannot apply. It is a waste of time. So let me and resumes are a waste of resumes, and job descriptions are a waste of job descriptions. Anything related to how hiring is done is waste. So if you can figure out how to avoid all of that stuff, at least you have a chance. Let me keep on going here. I want to also, this is where I really do want to spend some time on, is redefining an ideal candidate. And we'll talk about how do you present yourself as a great person 1 year after the hire. And that's what we're going to go for. Part of it is I want to remove the apply button. I guess you probably got that idea. As I said, I think it's a waste of time. And I literally got kicked out of a meeting. A major job board asked me to help them involved in their product development. And they had this beautiful apply button, beautiful, and they asked me what I thought. I said, put duct tape over it. It's a waste of time. I got kicked out of that meeting, never invited back. What I do is I fish as a recruiter and a hiring manager. And a hiring manager, whatever I say, a hiring manager can find candidates themselves. They don't need recruiters anymore. A good hiring manager can go out on LinkedIn, get LinkedIn Recruiter, find 10 people, send 10 emails, call 5 people, will call them up and I'll get it in the game. I mean, literally, I'm almost thinking that a transactional recruiter is history. You don't need someone who goes on LinkedIn and posts jobs and looks through resumes. The system can do it and you shouldn't do it anyway. So I'm really talking about, hey, let's dump everything and start over, even for job seekers or anybody else. So we got a lot of job start networking on. Yeah, it's a good one, Russell. That's the one I would do. And I'll tell Russell, I'm going to take Russell's point and make it a little bit more defined. Russell said, start networking on LinkedIn. So Russell, hold that thought. I want to kind of define what networking really is. And I've written I want you to do this. Maybe Russell, you can find it and put the link in chat. I wrote a post on LinkedIn, and I think it was called Finding It. Well, one was about networking, and it was for job seekers, and one was about how to find a job in the hidden job market. So look up networking and Lou Adler and see if you can find it. And if you can, I'll it'll be in chat. So if you can find it, Russell, you'll be great. No, JJ's camera is blocked, not mine. Not mine. You can see me, right? JJ, you can't see. I think, or maybe mine is blocked. Is mine blocked too? You can't see it? Oh no, I'm up there, up in that little tiny corner. Yeah, well, I can't make it any bigger. Sorry. Are you there, JJ? You're trying to be, huh?
I am here. Yes. Hi, Lou.
Hi, JJ. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Good. Am I in the wrong meeting?
There's a couple meetings, but I think you're fine. We can talk about this later.
I wasn't sure that I went to the right meeting, so we're going forward regardless.
Yep, we're good.
And you might want to check. You can see the chat. No, you probably can't. Only if you're watching this on LinkedIn. If you're watching it on LinkedIn, you'd see it. So you could probably go to LinkedIn Live and you see all the chat there. Russell, you can monitor it. Okay, so here, let me talk about what I said. First off, it's got to be a different strategy and a different system. So let me kind of just give you a sense of what I mean. And I'm going to go through this quickly. I could spend 3 hours on just this, and we have a lot of training around it. I basically make the statement to hiring managers, and I'm talking to hiring managers. Hey, hi, JJ. I'm talking to hiring managers as opposed to job seekers or recruiters. I tell hiring managers, you want to hire a great person, you got to start with a great job. And a laundry list of skills and experiences is at best a ill-defined lateral transfer. So throw those away. I always ask a hiring manager, hey, what does a person need to do to be successful? That's what I ask. What does a person need to do to be successful? And it's always some 3 or 4 performance objectives: build a team, grow sales, upgrade the accounting department. It's stuff that people do. We train recruiters, or hiring managers can do it. You can go on LinkedIn and find people who can do that work. I'm not going to get into all the details of it. We call them semifinalists, 10 or 15 people who can do the work, been recognized for doing the work, and would see the job as a career move. That's because I'm trying to get to win-win. Remember, I'm trying to hire for a year from now. So if it's just a lateral transfer and ill-defined, unlikely, there's too many problems that could come up. We then interview the candidate to make sure the candidate can do that work, motivated to do the work, and would see the job as a career move. We don't sell the comp. We obviously want to give a fair comp. But what we really want to sell is the career growth opportunity. And then we clarify those expectations during the onboarding process, and we deliver on the promise. That's how we raise the talent bar. It's a system, not a individual steps. And I'm going to contend job posting and resume matching and boring jobs. There's no chance you're going to get the end result you want. At best, you're going to hire someone who is willing to take your money, is willing to take a job without understanding what it is because they're needy and the company's needy. So I don't believe need on either side is the way you should hire people. Maybe that's the way you fill jobs. I'm creating careers. It's a totally different thing. If you're a job seeker, I'll give you some tips on how to do a better job of interviewing. But if you're a career seeker, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not interested in job seekers. And I think you as candidates, if you're a job seeker, you should say, no, I want to take this job. I want this job to be the right win-win. Now, you might obviously got to get paid and you got to get back into payroll and you got to do all this stuff. And I recognize that. Times are tough right now. But I still think you got to think long-term. It will put you at the top of the heap if you're thinking of I want to look at this as a real move where I can make an impact on the company and I have an opportunity to grow my skill set and move my career forward. I just think you have to take that attitude. So this is the most important thing I'm going to talk about. And we can talk about a lot of stuff. Then I'm going to give some tips to hiring to everybody. This is, to me, the root cause of the problem. If you're looking for a candidate, it's unlikely that candidate will wind up being a great hire. So here's what I want you to do first. In the chat area, I want you to say, if you've ever met someone who's a real top performer after they've been on the job for 6 months or a year, and you guys might have been a top performer, everybody listening to this. I ask hiring managers, after you've hired someone and they've been on the job for 3 to 6 months or a year, really found a person who is a great hire. Put some traits down, and I ask you, why is that person a great hire? What do you think people say about someone who's a great person after they've worked with them for 6 months or a year? Just put some of those traits in chat. Okay, so while you're putting the traits in chat, I am going to define what a great candidate is before I define what a great hire is. And I think they're totally different. Most companies won't even see somebody for a job unless they meet all the skills, experience is on the job description. And the system prevents you from getting in. So if you don't meet all the criteria, you're over. You're not going to get interviewed. I mean, 3% chance you'll get interviewed, 1% chance you'll get the job. Equal chance is somebody else they already know is going to get the job. So it's unlikely. So not even, that's a pretty long shot. Worse is if you can do the job, but don't have the exact skill set, you can't apply. That's where you have to kind of figure out, hey, how do I get in this job? I think I can do that work. You got to prove they can do the work, but you don't have the skills. So don't push the apply button. Number two, if you do push the apply button and you're one of the 3% who get the job, well, now actually recruiters will probably talk to 5 or 6%, but they screen you on, hey, are you okay with this compensation? If not, sorry. You okay with this title? If not, sorry. Are you okay with this location? Sorry. If you're interested in this job and what it is, and if you're not, you get screened out. None of that stuff predicts performance. Even the skills and experience doesn't predict performance, but you're screened out. But this is what the system is trying to manage. And then if you're actually met, if you're one of the 3 or 4 people who's actually met in person, they're going to judge you largely on your first impression. So if you're a little bit nervous or don't make the greatest first impression, aren't friendly enough, it's history. I mean, these are all stupid. None of those things predict on-the-job performance. So now I'm just going to read some stuff here. Good, thank you guys. Reliable, curious, growth, ambitious, adaptable, super, underrated trait, have to be able to get along, credible, reliable, get stuff done, problem solver. So I've been asking this question for 40 years. Tell me, and I've been talking to hiring managers for 30 of those 40 years. Because that's how I did my search practice. Like, tell me about the best people you got. And this is what they say, pretty much what everybody's been saying for 40 years. They get the results. They make it happen. They work well with others. They can manage themselves, manage their teams. They meet budgets. They meet commitments. They develop people. They collaborate with people. They don't make excuses. They make it happen. Every single manager in the world says that. You guys say it, whether you're a manager or not. The question I asked hiring managers, who would you rather hire? Someone who's got all the stuff on the left or someone who can achieve the stuff on the right? And 99% say, well, some say they want both. I say, you can't have both. You can just have one. I said, of course, I'll take the ones on the right. Then I asked this question. How well do the factors on the left predict the factors on the right? And first they think about it. You guys can think about it. But they start thinking. I said, have you ever met someone who's a great candidate, meets all that criteria, who's not a top performer? And they say, of course. I said, have you ever met a top performer who meets all the criteria on the right, but has a different mix of skills, might be a little bit nervous in the interview, willing to negotiate the salary? They said, oh yeah, of course. And I said, by focusing on the left, you put a lid on quality. You can't hire diverse candidates, and you can't find people who are non-traditional. In fact, 100% of the people you've promoted in your company don't meet the criteria on the left. The reason you promote them is because they meet the criteria on the right. So let's throw away the stuff on the left. It is useless. So if you build systems to hire people, find screen people on the left who are candidates, you're losing the opportunity to hire great people. This to me is foundational in combination with that system. Define great performance and then find people who are great performers doing that work. That's the process we talk about. And this is the key that I tell people. A job description listing skills, experience, and competencies and some academic background is not a job description. That is a person description. A job doesn't have skills. A job doesn't have experience. A job doesn't have competencies or academic background. A job is stuff that people need to do. So I always ask them, what does a person need to do? It's always 5 or 6 performance objectives. Build a team, grow sales, upgrade the analysis, put together some business intelligence reporting system using Tableau and SQL. Take over that factory line and reduce costs. Improve the warehousing system. Turn around this manufacturing facility or whatever it may be. They do stuff. And if you can prove they can do stuff, I guarantee they have all the skills you need. I'll say that again. If you can prove they can do that stuff, they got all the skills, but it will be different than what you put on your job description. And just because someone has all this stuff on their job description and makes a good first impression, is then willing to negotiate the salary before they even know what the job is, it's unlikely that they'll be able to do the work. The work defines the skills. The skills don't define the work. I'll say that again. The work defines the skills, and some people need more, some people need less, some people have a different mix. By defining the work, you open up the talent pool to everybody who can do the work. I had the #1 lawyer in the US assess this concept. He said, absolutely true, 100%. By putting a lid, by defining skills, experience, and competence, you put a lid on quality, you put a lid on diversity, you put a lid on performance, you put a lid on potential, you prevent the likelihood of achieving win-win hiring. Now, this next statement I put together, it took me 10 years to figure this little simple statement out. It's what people do with what they have that makes them successful, not what they have. 10 years. I must be an idiot. 10 years to figure that out? It's what people do with what they have. So when I interview a candidate, I quickly go through their resumes and then figure out, hey, what'd you accomplish with that? And I'd rather have someone who's got 2 years to 3 years experience to accomplish 10 years worth of work, as opposed to 10 years or 15 years worth of work to accomplish 5 years worth of work. It's what people do. And now as a job seeker, you got to prove you can do the work. You will not see that on your resume. Dude, are you even looking at the comments? Actually, dude, I can't. Because if I looked at the comments, I wouldn't be able to do the talking. So a silly comment. Yeah, I'm no dude. You get 70, you're no longer a dude. Who is that dude, JJ? Great Lebowski. Who was Lebowski?
The Big Lebowski. Yep.
What was his name? Who's the actor?
I'll have to look that up. My mind just went
Bridges.
blank.
It's
Lloyd Bridges. Jeff Bridges.
You sure?
I don't know.
That's the dude. That's the dude. I'm no dude. Okay. I'm going to take this. I'm going to go one step here. No, I want to hold on here. I want to add. Now, excuse me, guys. I'm going to have to do something I don't normally like to do, but I do want to bring in a. I'll show this. Okay, so if you're a job seeker and you're being interviewed improperly, and in this free class, we give you techniques on how to ensure you're interviewed accurately. And I'm going to go through that, and then I'm going to end this with some ideas on how you can find jobs in the hidden job market. But the idea that I make the statement is, and I wrote a book, I'm not going to show it to you, but it's called The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired. It's one of 4 books that I've written and a bunch of online training programs that we've been offered for the last 20 plus years. In the book, The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired, it was initially written for hiring managers and recruiters, but I put a segment in for job seekers if you were not being interviewed accurately. The most important one was if you feel you're being interviewed inaccurately, you have to take control of the interview. And you do this by asking this question as soon as the interview starts. If you feel you're not getting you're being judged indirectly or inappropriately based on someone box checking your skills. Just ask the hiring manager or the interviewer, hey, can you tell me some of the performance objectives of the job or some of the projects the person will be working on? Because I'd like to give you some examples of work that I've done that are most related. Now, if you're a interviewer, hiring manager, or recruiter, I ask, basically, that's one of the first questions I ask. I quickly go through the work history on the resume, but during that I say, hey, tell me about some of the big accomplishments you've had. That's what you should do if you're an interviewer, but if you're a job seeker and they don't do that, they say, how many years experience, what skills do you have? And they're just box checking. You've got to take control and say, time out. What are some of the performance objectives for this job? I'd like to give you some examples of work that I've done that are most related. As part of that, ask some clarifying questions. What are the resources? Who's on the team? What happened to the last person in this role? Is it a new role? What's the organization like? What's the timeline for this? What's the actual measures of success? By you just asking that question, even if you don't have a good answer, you're going to be in the top half. Just say, oh, that's a good question. I'm glad no candidate's ever asked me that question, but that's a good question. So that'll get you in the top half. If you can answer the question properly, then you're going to get the job, or you'll be in the top 5 or 10% of the finalists. But asking the question shows you're assertive, shows that you understand. The clarifying questions you ask to understand that indicates that you're smart, you've got good communication skills, you're assertive enough. And if you're quiet or introverted, you could still ask those same questions. So it's a pretty cool technique to get in the game. And you have to do this whenever you're asked misleading questions. JJ, I don't know if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you'll see the questions come through. Have you had a chance to follow the questions or the comments on LinkedIn?
I'm just looking through them now, Lou. So I will be back with you in just a moment. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask, how do you measure true performance? Yeah. I'm going to go back. So now I'm going to kind of go back if I can here. Let me just do this. I want to kind of take this step. So I want to because I'm trying to combine this with different audiences here. Okay, so I want to show this one. This is now I'll kind of show you how I get to the answer. Now, so this is going to be to everybody, whether you're a candidate, hiring manager, recruiter, executive. It's the hiring formula for success. It's how do you take that information and make a judgment. And remember, we're looking for great hires, not great candidates. As far as I'm concerned, if you can do the work and are motivated to do the work, you should get the job. I don't care if you're black or white, green or yellow. I don't care what your sexual preference is. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care how old you are. I don't care anything. If you're competent and motivated to do the work, you deserve the job. That's what the lawyer said. But you got to define the work to pull that off. Here's the hiring formula for success that you can tie in everything to make that assessment. Ability to do the work in relationship to fit drives motivation. And motivation is so important. It's a force multiplier. We square it. That equals results. And I'm going to kind of go through this with you, but if you're a job seeker, you can reverse engineer this. If you're a hiring manager, or interviewer, you're going to use the same methodology. Ability to do the work is a combination of soft skill. I'm going to say non-technical skills and technical skills. Soft and hard skills. You have to have enough of the technical ability to do the work. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years or 20 years. It's whatever it is. You got to be able to do the work, and I can certainly understand that. And if the work allows you time to learn, fine. If it does, you've got to deliver right away, fine. You need more experience. But I don't know, it's 5 years or 10 years. It's enough to do the work. It's a variable. It's not an absolute. The work is the independent fixed number. The variable is how many years you have. I don't know. Smart people need less years and less smart people need more years. But you have to be able to do the work. You have to work with others. That's you call it a soft skill. I call it a non-technical skill. It's too important to be called soft. Collaborating, working with people, managing people, developing people, project management in a matrix organization. No one can tell me that's a soft skill. Collaborating, influence, persuading, negotiating, getting your boss to approve more money to get something done. That's not a soft skill. That's a critical skill. So maybe I call them critical and technical skills. That might be good, critical and technical skills. To me, those organizational management team skills are much more important than, I don't want to say much more important than hard skills, because you have to get in the game. So let me kind of make a statement here, the thing that I've discovered. And I've been doing this for a lot of years. I've been tracking people forever. People I've known 30, 40 years ago, now retired, who started as analysts, accountants, engineers, became company presidents. And I get to interview someone in an hour. I know if they were going to make it and what they were going to become pretty quickly. It was this combination, but what I've discovered is the technical skills get you in the game. Your progress depends on your non-critical or the non-technical skills, the critical management, organizational, and team skills. They get you progressed. You're going to be the brilliant person. And I remember placing someone who got 1,600 on both boards. Brilliant guy. Oh, brilliant. Smart as a whip, but he never got past being a supervisor. And it was a big, major corporation. They just didn't get along with people, couldn't collaborate with people. But it was, so to me, it's, you got it. The technical skills get you in the game, but it's your non-technical skills that show the rate of progression. And that happens after a while. So technical skills, organization skills, problem solving skills, ability, relationship to fit, as important, if not more important. Fit with the job. If you're not motivated to do that work, you're not going to be happy. If you can't fit with the pace of the company, which is really a proxy for culture, pace, fast pace, slow pace, including decision making, all of those things are proxies for culture. You have to fit with the pace, the culture, the decision making, the value systems, and as important as all, you have to fit with the manager. The only reason I left corporate America, and I haven't regretted it for a while. I regretted it the first 5 years. I didn't like the group president. I loved the work. I didn't like the group president. He and I clashed. He came in every other week from wherever he was, and I hated that day. He got there, and then it took me a day to recover, and a week and a half before I saw him again. I was great the week and a half when I didn't see him. I hated it. I mean, I was so demotivated after I met the guy. Terrible. He was a demotivator. I'm sure some of you have people who work for you that demotivate you, but motivation is critical. It's intrinsic motivated to do the job in that environment, in that situation with that manager, not motivation to get the job. So don't tell me, oh, I want this job. Who cares? I don't care if you're quiet and don't want the job. If the job's a career move, I'll convince you it's worthwhile to take it. But if you're not motivated to do that work, win-win hiring is not a likely outcome. Make it happen. So now I want to go to ageism. And somebody asked me this yesterday or last week. And I remember this about 20 or 30 years ago. I was talking with a bunch of job seekers. I was giving back to the community. And the guy was a PhD in chemistry at the time. He was probably older than me, 50, 55. He said, they think I'm too competent or overqualified for the job. I said, well, you might be. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I know, what was the job? And he told me about the job, and it was something to do with a laboratory manager. I said, when were you a laboratory manager working on a bench, working chemical and all that kind of stuff that you would do? He said, well, I haven't done it for 20 years. I said, but I'm competent. I said, but that's not competent. It has to also be motivation. If you had done this recently and worked with teams and working on different, whatever the chemical compositions you were working on and were doing in the last year or two and loved it, and you could see that was, you excelled at it, age wouldn't matter. But if you haven't done it for 20 years, the fact that you're competent, you're past it. You just won't do it. It becomes an obligatory thing as opposed to a motivating thing. So motivation is critical. So its ability in relationship to fit drives motivation because it's so important. We square that equals results. Now, when I ask candidates questions, the candidate I ask is, hey, tell me about the best thing you've ever done in your whole life. Best thing you've ever done in your whole life. And I'm digging in. Hey, what kind of technical skills did you have? Tell me about the team you were on. Walk me through a project or plan you put together. Tell me about the biggest problem you solved. How'd you solve it? Tell me about the biggest decision you made. Tell me about your manager. What was the culture like? What was the pace like? What'd you like the most? What'd you like the least? Give me some examples of where you went the extra mile. And I dig deep into that person's accomplishments. And if you were a candidate, I'd dig deep into your accomplishments. Then I'd ask the question again for a different accomplishment at a different period of time so I can see the trend of performance over time. This formula drives interviewing if you dig deep into the person's accomplishments. And you already know the accomplishments because at the beginning, when you took the open rec, you said, hey, what does this person need to do to be successful? Now I just look at your accomplishments related to what it takes to see this pattern, and I can complete the hiring formula for success this way. It actually, surprisingly, isn't much more difficult than what I've just defined. It's getting everybody to do it that's the difficult part. Define the job. Find candidates who are motivated and competent to do this work. Interview candidates in a logical, objective manner where all this information comes out. Hire people who are competent and motivated to do this job and would see doing this job for the next year or two and would grow in it and would see the job as a career move. All those things, it's logical, sequence step by step by step. But pretty soon people make judgments about how much money you make and what your first impression is like. And if you have all the skills and you went to the right school, and if you're tall enough or friendly enough or warm enough or the right religion, or can you do this? I mean, all this stuff, which is noise. Hiring great people starts with a great job and a process that validates that this person is competent to motivate to do this work in this situation we have here. You do those things, you will be hiring better people. If you're a job seeker, you will be able to get a better job if you understand this methodology. Okay,
so
I'm
Lou,
going to end it with a couple of, and now any questions come in here? Let me first summarize real quickly.
Okay, you bet.
You want to hire a great person, start with a great job. This is what performance-based hiring is. We train hiring managers and recruiters to implement performance-based hiring in a case study program. We work hand in hand. It's some self-paced classes, some live classes, and they work through a case study. It is a great way to, nobody else trains the whole system, working recruiters and hiring managers together. If you're a job seeker, we give you a class for free. And this is based on me prepping probably 500, 600, 2,000 candidates. After I interviewed a candidate, if I thought the person was good, I then would ensure that they could present themselves properly. So that's it. It was my prep of how I prepped a candidate. Before I did it, though, I had to be competent and motivated to do the job, but I also wanted to make sure that they could interview properly. So that is a great free class at WinWin. You got to go here, www.winwinhiring.com, sign up for it, and you get it. And I think we're only going to have it for another week or two, so get it now. Any questions come in before we totally summarize, JJ?
Yeah, we do have a few questions, Lou. So this system sounds great, but how do you integrate this process with the current COVID-19 crisis?
Well, so let me say it differently for a job seeker. So let me take it to the point of view of a hiring manager or a recruiter who's working. A lot of companies are still hiring people. But even if a company is not hiring people, I make two suggestions is, hey, don't hire people pre-COVID and a transactional model the way you're going to hire them post-COVID. So let's assume that at some point in time, people will be hiring again. Do not bring the old stuff out of the parking lot or the closet and try to make it work. HR tech is not useful as it's now designed. Artificial intelligence screening out, weeding out the weak is a stupid strategy, and doing it faster is even stupider. I mean, this is what I've said. That's why nobody in AI, artificial intelligence for hiring, talks to me anymore. Spend more time with fewer people, but this is what I tell managers. Implement a raise the bar program around this high touch process of performance-based hiring. Have hiring managers, recruiters work together. Reboot the process. Don't bring the old process back. So that's what I tell companies. And we have a lot of companies doing that around the world. Hey, let's take this time. Let's build talent pools of top people, because there's some great people available who wouldn't normally be available. But I guarantee the best people who are available will not apply for a job. They won't apply because they know they know enough people. They'll go networking. They'll go on LinkedIn Recruiter and find an old manager. And that's what I want to kind of leave some of the questions to, is helping people. For job seekers, my advice is COVID is think about how you're going to get a job by not applying. I'll give you a couple of examples. I remember a guy 3 or 4 years ago in Italy. It was long before COVID. He just got his MBA degree. He wanted a job with one of the big 3 or 4 European telecommunications companies as a marketing analyst. And I said, well, and he couldn't, nobody, whatever it was, nobody was interviewing him. I said, why don't you do a competitive analysis of the 3 or 4 companies with some of their big product lines? You know how to do it. Go just do a case study. Company A, company B, company C, the main products, the benefits and advantages, and just do a competitive analysis, a little table, a couple pages. I might want to do a video today and send it off to the VP marketing of some of the divisions there. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, he calls and said, Lou, I did it. I got 4 interviews. Called me another week after that. So this has had to be 5 or 6 weeks after we had the first conversation. He said, I've got 2 more interviews. And I never heard from him again, but I looked him up a year or so later and he got a job at one of those telecommunications companies. The idea is a resume is a useless document. If you think you're a person on the right who's a performance qualified person, prove it. We're going to say, hey, I've done work. I'm looking at, you might want to look at the posting. This is the hidden job market, which I think I asked somebody to find the article. I don't know if they found it. The hidden job market, I say, hey, if you think you find a job posting that looks like work you can do, but you don't have a perfect mix on the skills listed, but you've done some work, describe the work you've done in 1 or 2 paragraphs. Put together a little video, a sample of the work. Here's what I did in this area. I'd like, and then send it off to one of the department managers, division heads, which you can find on LinkedIn, and say, I'd like to chat with you about this accomplishment. Bypass it. Bypass the HR department and the recruiting department. You do that a few times, spend more time on a fewer jobs that you think you're perfectly qualified for. It's much better than applying willy-nilly, which means randomly to jobs that hopefully you'll get one. And then you complain, oh, I applied to 1,000 jobs and I didn't get a single call back. How hard was it to apply? Push that button, that was great. That's not work. Nobody knows. Now the companies have to make sure that they feel they treat you nicely so you don't get aggravated with them because they didn't call you back. So they got to now spend money for the 997 out of 1,000 people who didn't get called back. They got to spend money to make that happen, and they don't treat the 3% of the people who should have got hired and the other 10 who should have applied never get seen. So that's what I say, people pre and post COVID. Don't go back to the old ways. Try something different. Reboot hiring. One last question, and then I'm going to go through my own list here.
Cool. We have a couple of questions that actually tie together. Questions are regarding the depth of the interview before you send the candidate onto to the hiring manager. First part of the question, how can you find candidates that have the right list of abilities in a 30-minute phone screen? And then also, what is the depth of the interview that a recruiter should have before sending that candidate on to the hiring manager?
Well, most of those are the same thing. Exploratory phone screen. So here's how we have a whole course on the exploratory phone screen. Whole course on exploratory phone screen. The most important tool there is. First off, we have a sourcing class too, which is pretty cool, and you'll see that on winwinhiring.com. I only source semifinalists. You can have 37 skills needed by the hiring manager. And I just say to the hiring manager, what does a person need to do with these skills? So I kind of know as an outcome. But from a reality standpoint, you pick 1 or 2 critical skills. They have all the rest of them. You don't need to source on more than 1 or 2 critical skills. I also looked for candidates who would see this job as a career move. I source semifinalists. Number one, they're qualified. They've done something remarkable in their background. So if it's an engineer, they probably spoke at a conference, they got a white paper, they put a patent together. But there's a couple, and this is our clever Boolean. It's so simple to find candidates. LinkedIn Recruiter lets you, it's easy. You can find candidates for any job in an hour and a half. Now you have to reach out to these people and express, hey, I've got a director level job, person's a manager, I got a senior, I'm working on 3 or 4 different projects that relate to this skill set, would love to just arrange an exploratory conversation. So I get on the phone, spend 5 minutes going through the person's background to get a sense of who they are, if they're legitimate. Then I say, hey, tell me about the biggest thing you did in this area. I just have one question, the question I just said. The biggest thing you've done. We need someone to launch a product or put together a product requirements document to pull this off and develop a system that does A, B, and C. Tell me about the biggest thing you've done related to that. I now know the person's in the game or not. I then show the hiring manager, hey, hiring manager, this person has done this project, which is exactly what we need done. This person's recognized for doing it, spoke at this big user conference last year at this person, and the person is open to have an exploratory conversation. Would you be happy? And I think we need to talk to this person. Now, I've set this rule up with hiring managers ahead of time. The rule I have with hiring managers, you will meet 100% of the candidates I present on the phone. You will talk to people And if you don't want to do that, fine, I cannot do the work. You will define the job as a series of performance expectations. If you don't want to do that, I cannot help you. On the other hand, if you do that, I will show you 2 candidates. If you don't think they're finalists that are worth inviting on site, let's stop and rethink what we did wrong. So to me, the exploratory phone screen ties everything together. I, the recruiter, able to find good candidates. The candidate sees this job as a career move. The hiring manager willing to see this person and assess this person properly. You do all those things, and that's why the exploratory phone screen is a great tool. Let me kind of do this, JJ. If we have time for a few more questions, we'll take them. First off, if you're a company, recruiter, talent leader, make sure you go to our website. It's here somewhere. I'm going to show it in a second here. Let me kind of do this. You can reach us at info@performancebasedhiring.com. I have a book, which whether you're a hiring manager, recruiter, or job seeker, buy the book. It's it's $10. That you have to pay because Amazon sells it. I don't sell it, and Amazon sells it. The course, it supplements the class. We have the job seeker, excuse me, we have the job seeker prep course. We have the exploratory phone screen course. We have a special program for hiring manager recruiters. Forget the May recruiter. Never mind. Let's leave it open for a Q&A. I don't want to do that. info@performancebasedhiring.com. JJ, could you just, I guess if you go to performancebasedhiring.com, you'll be able to find all this stuff as well. So you don't need to put it in chat. Okay, so Russell did this. Let me kind of do it. Thank you, Russell. If you see Russell at 10:47 a few minutes ago, he put in the article, How to Find a Job in the Hidden Job Market. Thank you, Russell. We appreciate that. How much is cost in US dollars? The cost of the job seeker class is free, $0 in US dollars. The cost of the book, you got to go to Amazon. The Kindle version is 10. It's got to be whatever it is. So sometimes it's a little less than that, but generally around $6 to $7 or $8 US, the Kindle version of the book. Any other questions, JJ, that I didn't see here?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions actually about hiring managers. So specifically, how do you deal with a hiring manager who is resistant to try change? And then also, how do you overcome a difficult hiring manager who might not be so smart, let's just say, in your opinion?
Let me say this. Now, I tend to be from New York. I am from New York. I was born there. I work in factories, union factories, so I tend to be pretty aggressive. That doesn't mean that everybody should be that level of aggressiveness. So that's not the important thing is. I talk to a lot of hiring managers who are reluctant to change. So the first thing I do, and let me just give you some ideas. I start off by saying, what does this person need to do to be successful? And they say, you should know. That's a different issue. I said, then they kind of say, I don't want to tell, I don't have time for that. And I said, well, when are you going to tell the candidate what he or she is going to be doing? What do you mean? Yeah, you're going to tell the candidate. What if the candidate asks you, tell me about the job? Are you going to say you don't have time? Oh, no, I'll tell the candidate. And so why don't you tell me so I can find people who want to do that work? So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is if manager's real reluctant, I just say, okay, let me do this. We have the job description with skills, experience, and competencies. We also, I believe this is some of the key performance objectives for that job. And if you're a recruiter, you kind of know what the performance objectives are roughly. And the manager will kind of modify them. I said, let me do this. I know you want someone who's got all the skills and also can do the work. I'll find people who can do the work, 2 or 3, and I'll find people who have all the skills, 2 or 3, and you make your judgment on who the best candidate is. It's just an A versus B test. I don't say it's an A versus B test, but it is. And manager said, okay, I'll do, that's a good idea. But I've had plenty of hiring managers. I remember one from many years ago, and I just reached out to him about a month ago, and I hadn't talked to him in 15 years. It was for a VP. It was one of my biggest jobs I had at the time, a VP of marketing for a company up in Silicon Valley, high-tech company. It was the dot-com boom. Just before that, everything was exploding, and they wanted a VP marketing. And he said, I want an MBA from a top school, double E from a top school, be good if the person had a master's degree in double E and an MBA and 10 years experience in doing this stuff. And he said, then he was real aggravated with me as a recruiter. He said, why am I even talking to you? You've never done this. Why should I even talk to you? It just so happened I knew one of the board members. So that's how I was interviewing. I just said, Lee, I understand all of that, but if the person was here a year, on the company year, and that you've decided this was a great person, you want to give this person either a performance bonus, some equity, some more shares in stock, or a promotion, what would the person have accomplished where you agree this was a great person and the board agrees with a great person? And he finally said, well, that was the first good question you've asked. This is after a half hour. He said, well, I want this person to put together a 3-year product roadmap. And he spent 10, 15 minutes describing what this product roadmap would look like and how to navigate technology and all of that. And I said, okay, I won't compromise on that. But if I can provide someone who can build a roadmap like that, who's done something very similar, equally as complex, would you at least see the person? He said, of course I would. I just told you. Once you define what the work looks like in terms of an outcome, managers just kind of melt. They sometimes have difficulty articulating it. But if you look at Google's Project Oxygen, you look at Gallup's what the world's greatest managers do differently, and the Gallup Q12, it says exactly there. Best managers clarify expectations up front. So sometimes I just have given managers a copy of the Gallup book, what the world's greatest managers do differently. I give it to them. I said, I'd like to talk to you about it. And it's like magic. You just have to prove it. You have to be assertive enough, and you can be diplomatic and being assertive, but if a hiring manager isn't willing to do it, they shouldn't be hiring managers. But I literally haven't found any hiring managers that aren't willing to do it. A few that I shouldn't be hiring, you got promoted over, shouldn't have done it, but then that's a different issue. That's a issue that you got someone in the job who shouldn't be in the job. So that's my answer to that. One last question, JJ, so we end this.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lou. There's a lot of questions from international folks, a ton of international folks on this call. So is this process relatable to different countries and different country cultures? And if so, how can you adapt it to adjust to the cultural norms?
Okay, well, I think it's a great question. Well, I know we've got people in the books written in Chinese. My book, The Essential Guide for, hold on. This might not be Chinese. What language is this? Well, it's written in this, I think this is Mandarin, but it could be, I don't know. What is this, Japanese? I don't know. Irrespective of that, it's written in China, it's written in Korea, it's written in Japan. We have placements in India, in Singapore, in Vietnam. So we've used it around the world. Now, there are certain cultural differences that people don't want to talk about their accomplishments, but I just kind of urge them to do it. But the idea of, and we just have one of the largest Japanese companies in the world has decided that, hey, I think we have to rethink how we hire people based on performance, not on skills. So we have seen it in every country in the world. I haven't found one that it doesn't work. Maybe Liechtenstein, because they only hire 2 people a year in Liechtenstein, but that's not because it doesn't work. They just don't have any hiring needs. Sorry for that in the back, showing the back of my head, but I had to do that. So I think, and we've also done it for entry-level jobs. We helped YMCA hire 100,000 camp counselors once. We just benchmark what the best camp counselors do when they're 16 or 17. We just go out and what do the best people do? So there's 2 processes. What does a person need to do to be successful? What do the best people do differently? We develop the performance objectives. Then we go out and find people who can do that work. And if you're a job seeker, you got to prove you can do the work. And then ask the question, what does this person need to do? You do those things, every role will be in alignment. Good luck, everybody, getting great jobs, hiring great people. Thank you very much, JJ. Over and out till next week.
All right. Thank you, Lou. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.